Hello and good afternoon. I'll introduce us all in a minute, but we're looking at cybersecurity and what the risks and what we can do for you. So we've got a team of us here to help you, and I'll introduce us all in the next couple of slides. But we're going to give an introduction to cybersecurity first, then we're going to look at phishing, what it is, how it works, and then Tom's going to talk to you about social engineering and recce attacks, and then we'll summarize for you at the end. So the staff introductions haven't come up, but if we think about what is cybersecurity and cybercrime, it's crime involving a computer on a network. The computer may have been used in the commission of that crime, or it may be the target. And what we're looking at is people getting access to people's resources. So it could harm their security, their financial health. It could be stealing data, manipulating data. There's lots of different angles for it. There's a study by PhishMe, and 91% of successful cyber attacks began with curiosity or fear, or a sense of urgency to entice people to want to gain people's personal and business details. So phishing is a crime which we target or targets our contacts by email, telephone, or text message by some posing to be someone, but they're not, to try and lure you into a sense of full security, and then to try and steal data off you, such as personally identifiable information, credit card details, passwords, and so on. So in a few minutes, my colleague, Dr. Asma Patel, is going to talk to you in more detail about phishing and run a little quiz with you. And then she'll hand over to my colleague, Dr. Tomasz Bosikowski, who will look at recce attacks, and Phil O'Neill's coming in with us. He's one of our development managers towards the end to give you a little bit of a chat. So phishing emails mimic what's going on in reality, and they lead you into this false sense of security to believe that it's a business that you trust. And the whole idea is to trick you and to give you personal information away, or even click on a malicious link that can download malware that can sit and reside in your system and cause damage. Thousands of these attacks are launched every day, and we'll have a look at a few of them as we go along. So what can you do? Stop trusting your emails, basically. They're not always as they seem. The biggest advice we give to anybody is, if you're unsure about something or unsure whether it's come from a legitimate source, talk to your information services team, talk to your computer support team. People, much rather people be honest and say, look, I'm a bit worried, can I just check this, than you clicking on something and causing potentially millions of pounds worth of damage. But there are some telltale signs which we can look at to help you mitigate against them, and that's what Asma's going to do shortly with you, and go through some of the more common ones. But before we get to there, passwords is a big bugbear of mine. When you see how people set passwords up, lots of organizations say use at least 8 characters, and the idea is that's when our hashing algorithms work better. And then say you've got to use a lowercase letter, an uppercase letter, a number, and or a special character, and that's to make it harder for somebody to guess. So if you look at this little table, if you use just numbers, up to 10 numbers, you can gain virtually, or guess virtually instantly, what the passwords are going to be. And it's a really quick way of getting in. Even with up to 12 numbers, it's only taking a decent hacker 25 seconds to get in. If you use lowercase letters only, we're talking 9 lowercase letters, and it's 2 minutes and they've got your password. So this is where we come in, using these more complex passwords and using words that aren't a word in itself. So like, for example, in the first initials of a number of random words you've put together, because it takes them a lot longer to get your password. A lot of people tend to use their partners or their siblings or the child's name. And, you just being someone in a pub or pretending to be a sales engineer and chatting to people. It's amazing how much information people can glean off you. A lot of people use the football team they support, for example, or the motor racing team they support in F1. So we need to be careful to use some obscure words. One of the main attacks people do is what we call a dictionary attack, where they buy a dictionary of known words, and it just pushes the words in as the password field over and over again rapidly until it makes a hit. So some people decide to use, you know, I'll use a German word and an English word. But you can get multilingual dictionaries now where you have multiple words in there from lots of different languages. So this is where we need to start using these other characters to help protect ourselves. A lot of people see it as hassle when they have to generate a new password, but you know what, it's going to stop you getting attacked, doesn't it? So if we look at this this is an example of from an email that was sent to me a few weeks ago. And I looked at them and thought they're very, very similar. But the difference is this one letter here. If you can see, the font is different to in the top one. And that font there is actually a Cyrillic letter. So if I clicked on it, it took me to a spoof website. It wasn't the website I was supposed to be getting to. And this is how they're trying to get around it, because when we read these URLs quickly, we don't notice that change of font. You know, and some people might think, oh, well, I just had a change of font, it'd be all right. Being a Cyrillic letter, it actually takes you to a completely different website. So it's something really, really simple to look into. You know, this is hackers the myth. Everyone thinks, you know, it's people sitting in a dark room like off that good old film from years ago, The Matrix, and you've got this really super powerful computer and they watch the CIS programs and all the hacker programs on the telly, and people are getting to systems in like 2 minutes. It doesn't happen. People don't get into systems that quite so quickly. But this is the myth, and this is what we've all been bought into because been watching a lot of the Hollywood blockbuster movies. The reality is things like social media. So all these were taken off, believe it or not, my Facebook site, and these come up regularly. And if you had to marry your spouse, where you met them, where would your wedding have been? Your poor name is your middle name and the first car you had. And all of these, believe it or not, are what a lot of people use as part of their passwords. Okay. Also, they're quite often security questions you use when you sign up for things like online banking or setting an account up with Amazon or another online service. And we'll take part of these because we think they're just a little bit of fun. And they always appear to come from different people. The reality is, it's probably the same person sending out multiple questions, and what they're doing is recording to see if you're consistent with your responses. If you're consistent with your responses, you know, subconsciously that's what you'll enter as a security question when you're setting up an online account. So this is one that came to me, telling me about my gas account, saying I was refundable for nearly a £2,500 refund. And I thought, yay, £2,500 back in my pocket. And then when I looked at the top, I saw British Gas UK. It's actually British Gas PLC. But if you look at the email it came from, it was test@premierconcrete.biz. And that kind of rang alarm bells. So what's the first thing I did? Deleted it and marked it as spam. So if it ever came back from that email address again, it just went into a spam folder and got deleted. This is how clever people are being, and it's something we've really got to look out for. And Asma's going to explain this a lot more in a few minutes. So if you think about setting an online account up, some of the typical security questions they ask you are, what's your favorite color? And I reply back, eagle. What's your first school you went to? Purple. What's the first car you owned? A pumpkin. And I remember going to a bank and they were asking me these questions and they said, but that isn't a color, that isn't a school, and that isn't a car. And I said, exactly. You know, if I'd answered favorite color purple just because it's written down, purple isn't my favorite color. But if I wrote down purple, it's an easy one for somebody to guess because there's only a finite number of colors. You know, first school, you can pick that up off things like census reports and social media. First car, you saw those pictures off Facebook. What's the first car you owned? So I purposely chose answers that had nothing to do with the question whatsoever, because it makes it a lot harder for the attacker to come in and try and guess what your responses are. The bank manager I was doing this with was just completely, you've lost me. I really don't get this. But, you know, those quizzes on social media, as we've just seen on Facebook, it's so easy to get this information off people because they answer these quizzes that they see on social media. Okay, so it's something we need to be wary of. So I think this is where we hand over to Asma, isn't it? So if you want to take over, Asma.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. So, Chris, do you mind moving to the next slide?
Yep.
Yes. So, well, hello everyone. My name is Asma Patel. Chris already introduced me. So I'm going to just give you some practical examples of what sort of emails and URLs you need to be very careful while using any electronic device or electronic communication in future. So first of all, what is phishing? Phishing is just trying to as Chris already explained, but in simple words, just to make you believe that the fraud page or fraud URL or an email is a legitimate one. So if you look at this page, it has Staffordshire University logo, it has hello, and there is also the email starts with staffs, ends with staffs.ac.uk. So one must think that probably this is a legitimate page. It has the logo and it shows the email, but don't be misled. You should also check the URL. So if you go to the URL on this page, it's nothing related to Staffordshire University. It's completely it is forums dot completely different URL. So this is an indication. This is just an attempt to fool you, or a phishing attempt. So if you can move to the next page, please, Chris. Thanks. So this is a phishing page. It's not a legitimate Staffordshire login page. Another example here, some cases happened within Staffordshire University security data that we have analyzed. So we've got some screenshots from internal emails that we have captured. So first one, if you see, first one is also an phishing attempt, just to lure users to click on some URL. So you have to be very careful from where the email has come, what sort of URL it is displaying before you click on it, and also any other additional information that can help you make a decision whether this is an legitimate email or it's a phishing attempt. So these are two examples which, after assessing carefully, it was highlighted that these are two phishing emails. Sometimes you have very strong phishing filters in your Outlook and internal whatever security devices or monitoring system that you practice, but some of the other time you will end up with receiving some email just because some signatures are not known, or there are some new attempts that has been used for phishing. So you have to be very careful, and if you come across anything that is phishing, you always have to report it, as Chris mentioned before. So what we will do now, we are going to do a small quiz, and that will help you assess some sort of emails and URLs that are very common examples of phishing, and some signature that it is not a legitimate communication. So can we move to the next slide, please? Yes, we'll have to open this quiz. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. So we are going to take this interesting quiz. So this is just to help you assess your understanding of phishing. So Chris, if you can please put your name. It's a Google quiz, so you can trust putting your initials, your actual information on this. So if everybody wants to practice this on your mobile phone or on your PC, please feel free to do it while I am explaining. So first question, if you notice, it's a bit very small screen, so I have to go very close to my laptop. Yes, so if you see, this is an email from Luke Johnson. So first thing you will check is the email. This you always should check whether it's a legitimate one or not. So it says gmail.com, so it sounds there is no issue. Then you look at the doc file which is attached. So if you can hover to the doc file, it will show at the bottom, if you see, there is http://drive-google.com. So this could be a sign that why it starts with drive-google.com. Then because any Google any doc file which is shared with Google Drive, it should always start with Google first. And if there is um, a misled URL, then you have to be very careful. So in this case, we will say this is not a legitimate, it's a phishing attempt. So if you can please click on phishing. So it says and show me, it will just help you understand is because drive-google.com is not a proper URL. If it's a Google, if the document is shared by Google Drive, it should be google.com/drive. So this is an indication that it is not a legitimate email. So if you can move to the next part of the quiz. Thanks. So in this case, of course, you should check the email, then the logo of any company, and also if there are any links, you have to hover on the link first before clicking on it, because it could be a malware or any malicious link. So if you see, it says efax, but if you notice URL, sorry, the email, it says no reply, and the spelling is completely different. It is not matching with the logo. So this is an immediate indication that this could be a phishing attempt. So we will say it's a phishing email. It's not a legitimate one. It should be correct. So again, if you click on show me, it will show you why. So it's because it's completely different than efax. And also the URL was different than the efax spelling, which is mentioned in the email and in the URL. So if you move to the next quiz, thanks. Next. Yeah, even here it says mailru382.co. So this doesn't look a standard URL. So it is complete. It is an attempt to fool you if you click on it. So it could be a potentially a malware. Now here it says an email from a friend. It says gmail.com. So email looks okay. But when you click on this, when you hover on this photo, you'll check the link says drive.google.com download. So this doesn't look a legitimate URL, because it should, if it's from Google, it should always end with google.com / and then it should follow up with some sub URLs. So this is an indication that this could be a phishing email. So if we'll click on phishing, so the email is right, but the URL looks incorrect. So show me, let's check the answer. So if you say styes.net, also here, the URL says styes.net. And then if you click next. Okay, now here it's an email from Dropbox. So first, the email looks fine. It says Dropbox, then no reply at dropboxmail.com. This looks fine. If you click on upgrade, just hover, you shouldn't click, sorry, and see the URL, it says HTTPS, so it has security, / www.dropbox.com, and then the URL ends with a / and then it starts with a subdomain by. So this looks fine to me because it starts with a security HTTPS, then www.dropbox.com / and then by. So I think this looks a legitimate one. So I would go for legitimate. Is this right? Oh, that's correct. So show me. If you click on show me, Chris.
We've done that. It's come up here as my.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. It's
Sorry.
taking, there is a delay, I think. So it says Dropbox, dropboxmail.com. So if you click next, again, here legitimate because it ends dropbox.com / and then it starts with a subdomain by. So if we click next and we go to the next question, yes. So there are only 3 more. So I won't repeat the same ones. If there is something new, then I'll highlight that. So here again, we look at Sharon sent an email from a school, and there is a PDF attached. Now, if you notice there is any attachment and you're not sure about the person who has sent you the email, then you should definitely not download or click on it. And especially if you look at the format, it says F dot. I'm looking at the PDF, so if it says F.A.R then .pdf, so this doesn't look right, because dot should always be used once in a file format. So this could potentially be a malware. Then we look at the email. It starts with it ends with .org. Now, if it's a school, it usually goes with ac.uk or any educational URL format. So this is an indication. So why Sharon is not using a school domain. So this potentially looks that there is a phishing attempt. So we will click on phishing and let's check. Thank you. So show me. Yes, it says westmountschool.org. It should not be org. If it's a school, then it should have educational URL. So for example, for Staffordshire University, we use staffs.ac.uk. We don't use org. And next, if you click next, thank you. Yes, also PDF. It doesn't look right because there are many dots. You should only, if there is a PDF, it should always have one single dot, but this looks, that's why it's a phishing attempt. So next. So this one is an email from Google. No reply, google.support. Now this is the first indication here. Why support? Why there is no end domain like google.com, .co.uk or something, but support doesn't look right. So that's an indication this could be a malicious email, phishing attempt. If you check if there's any URL highlighting, if you hover at change password, yeah, look at this URL. It starts with myaccount.google.com-security. It's a very long URL. I wouldn't trust this one. As I said, legitimate URL will always end by my account, maybe google.com / and then a subdomain should start. So this is an indication that it's a phishing attempt. So we will go for phishing. Thank you, Chris. Show me again the same Google support. Next. And it also says security.org, which is not legitimate. Why would Google use org? Google security.org. Next.
Yeah, it's a good point because org is usually for charity organisations.
Sure.
As I said before, there's no .uk on the end or another country.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So this one, it says no reply at google.support. I think this is phishing because if you look at the email, you see google.com, you should be google.co.uk, but support is not a domain, not a standard practice while you are using any email. So this looks phishing to me. When you click on change password, the link is https, it has security, google.com / oh, it's using tinyurl.com. So it's using a tinyurl portal to reduce the size of this of the actual URL. So why it is using tinyurl? So that is also an indication that this could be a phishing attempt. And the first indicator is .support, and the second, why to use tinyurl. So tinyurl is a tool which is used to reduce URL to a smaller smaller one, I would say. So I would say phishing attempt. Click, and that is correct. Show me. Perfect. So we know now is support shouldn't be a legitimate email. If you click next, yes, pass why to use tinyurl. That's another indication it's a phishing attempt. Next. So tinyurl, another common platform is Bitly. That is also Bitly, so used a lot. And then here it says Google. So it says Chris Howard's email at staffs.ac.uk, and it says wants to. And this is an app. So this is basically third party authorization. You get this a lot nowadays. So if you click hover on trip ID, any URL doesn't know, but it is actually an application. And if is there any other yeah, at the bottom it says trip8.com. Looks the email the URL looks okay to me. It says https, so there is a security, then / www.tripit.com. Again, this looks fine. So I think everything is okay. This is just a third-party app trying to authenticate the user using Google account. So this is a normal practice. So I would say legitimate. So yeah, that's correct. Perfect. Show me. So again, the same, because it's an app. And there is nothing wrong using third-party app using Google to authenticate users. And it also the URL looks fine. So I would say next. That's why it is. So we've got all answers right. So even if someone didn't get their answers right, I've done this quiz many times, so I'm sure I'll score almost 8 out of 8. So if we go back to the slides, please, Chris. Thank you. So the point here is to make you aware what you need to always check before receiving when you receive any email and you're not sure about the sender or the files attached, or any promotional emails that you get. So first thing, email, you have to check if it ends with .co.uk or where any legitimate ending of an email. Then you check if there is any attachment. If there is an attachment, what sort of namings that attachment has. Hover over it, and if you think the URL is not making any sense, it is using tiny URL bit.ly, or it uses something like google.support or anything similar, you should not open it. Again, as Chris said, you should report as spam. And how you can do that: so if you on any uh, internal Outlook you're using, or any mail application that you're using, it will always have report message. So this one, so you should always when before opening that message, once you receive it, click on it, just mark it and then report the message to your internal security team, and then they will assess further what sort of spamming methods have been used, and you will save the organization a lot of hassle. So you should always report, not just delete it, but you should also report the message, so the system can learn new signatures if there are anything missing from the security devices. And this is how the small click will help your organization to be secure and protect these sort of spamming emails in future. So very simple, just report, and there you go. And never click on anything that you are not sure about. It is always to be safe than sorry. So that's all. Thanks, Chris. So maybe Thomas. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Thomas. You can take over.
Thank you, Asma. So we'll be looking at some of the reconnaissance techniques that are typically used by malicious hackers at the beginning. So typically it's the first stage, but before we do that, let's have a quick look at the data breach. So a data breach is a security incident where information held by an organization are stolen or accessed without an authorization. And as you can see, this is just one of a security report from, this is from the IBM 2020. So as you can see, you look at those numbers, it's a quite big problem. You can see on average total cost that was 3.86 million pounds. You can see that the healthcare sector is targeted in particular, so 7.1 million pounds here, because obviously this is where they can access personal information and then sell them on the dark net. One of the examples you can see, this is just from BBC. If you click on that link, so that will take you to BBC website, and you can read about this story. So this is Marriott Hotel, and they were fined by ICO, so Information Commissioner's Office, 18.4 million pounds for data breach. So basically, they didn't secure their system, their network, and because of that, the data breach occurred, and obviously the customers' data, email addresses, credit card numbers, were stolen. And obviously Marriott did not secure that, and in that case they were fined. So it's a big problem, and obviously something you need to look at. So if you will look how these things happen, who is responsible? Yes, typically it's external attackers, so someone from outside the organization, but it could be someone internal as well, so employee. Also, it could be accidental data loss, so someone published those data accidentally, basically, on a public domain on the internet, and that will be also classified as a data breach. I've got some two links if you want to have a sort of look what you could do to secure your organization. So you can look at ICO website, so ICO for Small Medium Enterprise Web Hub, where they will provide you sort of information and guidance how to protect sort of your organization from data breach, and as well NCSC Cyber Essentials. That's also a good source of information that you can sort of explore. So we'll look at in a moment at, as I say, at Reconnaissance stage. But typically any type of attack will start with some kind of social engineering attack. And this is basically to trick you into providing sort of more information, more sensitive data to those malicious hackers. So what they try to do is, as Chris mentioned and Asma, send you those phishing emails pretending to be someone else. So you can see some of the examples of social engineering techniques. We've got impersonation, so pretending to be someone else, for example, a system administrator, and asking you for a password. Deception, so joining company as an employee, that also could happen. And we've got also reverse social engineering, so creating a problem, for example, DOSing a company, and then at the same time sort of advertising, so pretending to be an expert, someone who can help to protect from those type of attack. So let's look at Reconnaissance. So this is typically the first stage of an attack, of a cyber attack, and the aim of basically of this stage is to gather as much information as possible about the target. So it could be individual, it could be you, it could be a company, so it could be some kind of organization as well. That could be also a target. This is typically called passive information gathering. So we've got passive and active. So passive is when we talk about passive information gathering, this means is without alerting a victim. So basically there is no direct interaction with a victim, with a target. So at this stage they don't send any emails, they don't scan a network, they don't call you or anything like that. This is basically whatever malicious hackers can find about you or your organization on a public domain on the internet. So this is called passive. So example could be, which we will go through in a moment, some of those examples. Could be basically using Google search engine, typing your name and see what they can find about you. You don't know that, obviously, that someone is typing that in the Google search engine. So that's why we call it passive. Before I move to some more sort of more advanced techniques, obviously one of those techniques is dumpster diving, which means basically looking at any sort of papers left near the printer or any papers, so sort of hard copies you sort of throw to the bin, and the bills, because they will contain information such as address, could be telephone number, could be email address, your office number, and so on. So dumpster diving will belong as well to this category. So it's very important that you, whatever you throw, whatever paper sort of waste you throw away, and that's obviously either shredded. So there are some tools that you can use that will shred this securely, obviously, and no one will be able to retrieve any data from it. So the first thing, obviously, is an organization will have a web presence. There will be a website. So this will be typically the first thing they will look at. And if you look, for example, at our website, you will be able to find information such as employee names. So, you know, Chris or me or Asma, that will be there. Will be our email addresses, telephone numbers, office number, and so on. And that could be used basically to create those phishing emails. So they could use my email address and basically email me, you know, some kind of phishing email. What else they can do? That's obviously one thing. The other thing they could do, they could look at the HTML code of the website. So sometimes developers, they left comments, which again, they could include some sensitive data or passwords. It happened in the past. So they could also do that, look at the source code, look at the HTML code, and see whether there's anything there that could be used. There are some tools that are very, very sophisticated tools, like wget, for example, which allow you to download entire website. You've got different settings there, so obviously it will be detected by our security system that someone is downloading quite a lot of data at once. But those sort of tools are very clever. They can sort of download a bit of data, wait a bit of time, and then do that again. So just to they try to sort of evade our systems. The other thing you can look on our website is job adverts. Not necessarily on our website, but there will be also some other website where you can look for the jobs. But obviously, every university will have a careers link, and you will see job adverts, and you will be surprised that you can actually find quite a lot of useful information there as well. As you can see on this example, we've got just below, we've got the statement urgent here. So which means basically looks like there is a shortage of staff at the moment. So they're looking for 2 support engineers in this case. And again, that could just indicate that maybe no one is monitoring this network at the moment. Some of the job adverts will list tools or software, hardware that is used by a company. So we can see here that, for example, I just pick up one, like monitoring tools. For example, here you can see that they listed like 2 names here. And again, looking at that, I will probably just have a quick look if there's any vulnerability related to this tool, and maybe if there is, I could maybe exploit it. So as you can see, just from the job adverts, you will be able to extract quite a lot of sensitive data. So we can see here some other things like VLANs, load balancers that they use. Looks like they've got some kind of virtualization, some kind of cloud also here. So they're using Amazon and VMware products. Looks like there is some kind of Linux operating system used by this company, and so on. So just coming back to this job adverts, obviously these days we probably will not list that. This is a very old job advert, I would say. And things obviously move on. We've got new policies in place, so we cannot publish certain things online anymore. But obviously it's the internet, and we can actually go back in time. And if you click on this link, archive.org, which is sort of a way of trying to see or to look at a website from the past. So it was a research project. It's a research project, so they archive back to 1996. It's not every day that you will have a snapshot, but you might have a snapshot every month, for example. And if you type our website www.stabs.ac.uk, then you will see that they've got snapshots, obviously, from the past. And why this is useful, as I say, because we don't publish some data now, but maybe we did that 2-3 years ago, and you can look at this, and you will still be able to find it there. Okay, so very, very interesting thing that you can explore. The other technique that is used, again, for passive, remember passive, I'm not contacting a target yet, I'm just sort of using, as you can see, looking at the website, at the job adverts. Anyone can do that, there's nothing suspicious here. Is Google hacking, so I'm using a Google search engine. And again, Google search engine is quite powerful, especially if you use specific commands that they called advanced operators. And using those operators is very useful because you will be able to narrow down your search. So if you type Staffordshire University and, I don't know, some kind of keywords they're looking for, like login, passwords, then obviously that will result in, I don't know, million of results. But if you just narrowed it down with some of those, which you can test yourself with some of those advanced operators, for example, site, so you can put Staffs.ac.uk. I just want to look at this specific domain from Staffs.ac.uk. Maybe I want to look at only PDF files, so you can add extension, for example, PDF, and then, using specific keywords, that probably will narrow it down to very, to probably, I don't know, let's say 100, for example, results, and you will be able to go through that, and maybe there will be something useful. Okay, so again, Google search engine, very, very useful tool. Okay, so that was just some of the examples, as I say, of the passive one. And if you want to look at some of those links in that PowerPoint and explore them, some of those techniques, maybe using your own company, you will see you can extract quite a lot of details. And just coming back to my point, and that's why we've got quite a lot of those data breach recently, because it's so easy basically to create those social engineering, phishing emails. Okay, so I'll pass it to Chris.
Yeah, what Tom was saying is absolutely correct. But so from a more active point of view, people target others in stressful situations. So, for example, in an airport queue to check your bags in. A number of years ago, I was out in Berlin working. I was waiting to fly back to the UK, and security was really, really strict because Barack Obama was visiting just at the end of his tenure as president of the USA. And I got talking to this guy in the queue, and he's a bit agitated, and he's a bit nervous about flying. And he told me his kids' names, his family name, his wife's name, what school his kids are going to, which school his eldest daughter was going to as a university. And after about half an hour, I knew an immense amount of details about him. And I said, what do you do for a job? He goes, I'm a security engineer. And I said, well, you just told me all these details. I do hope you're not used any as passwords or credentials to log on to your site. No, I haven't. And you could tell you couldn't get away to go and change all these passwords. It's the same in coffee shops, any queuing system, or in bars. If people are suddenly paying you kind of an unusual amount of attention, be careful of the questions they're asking you, because they're just building this information up, as Tom was saying, like with dumpster diving, because they can add all these little bits of information together, and that's what gets them to the end point of where they're going to start doing attacks. So it's just being wary. But stressful situations are a very common one to do. I've heard of people doing it in doctors' waiting rooms and things like this, because people are nervous, so they'll talk to people to take the mind off what's going to happen. So it's just something to be careful for. So it was a very whistle-stop tour, giving you an idea of what things to look for, in particular with phishing and reconnaissance attacks. It's a massive field, but there's lots of little things we can do to make it safer, such as that quiz Asma showed you, just checking the email address, where it came from, looking at the links, does the URL make sense? If you don't have a cross-cut shredder, be careful where you're disposing of commercial materials. Make sure your company has a security policy. A big one we talk about is educating users, explain to them why it is dangerous. Make sure that all your systems accept all the updates and patches pushed out, so they are constantly updated against attacks. And this is the big one. If in doubt, ask. Don't be afraid to ask suppliers and vendors. We were trialing some equipment we were going to buy for a project, using what they call the IEEE 802.1x authentication system. And we couldn't get it to work. And I rang the vendors up and said, I can't get 802.1x working. And they said, well, what number are you using for X? It isn't a number you choose. 802.1x is an international standard for authentication. And it was at that point I lost faith in that organization, and we didn't go with them buying the equipment off them because they didn't understand security protocols. But ask. That's the main thing. If in doubt, ask. Okay, so thank you for watching. We push stuff out on social media quite a lot. And there's our Twitter feeds and our Instagram feed. I've just put out that in the Guardian League table, we've just been ranked 4th best in the country for satisfaction with our teaching, which is really good, out of 108 institutions for teaching computing. But yeah, we push updates out and stuff that's going on in the news about security all of the time. So now I need to hand over to Phil. You're on mute, Phil.
Hopefully at some point I'll remember to unmute myself at the first time of asking. Thank you very much. For those of you that can't lip read, what I was saying was thank you very much, all of you, for that presentation. That was very useful, and I'm sure all the audience would agree with that. Just to introduce myself, folks, my name is Phil O'Neill. I'm a development manager within Knowledge Exchange and Enterprise. So I work with businesses in the local area to find out how they can best partner with universities. So I'm just jumping on for a few minutes just to run through the different support which is available for businesses. So if you are someone who deals this kind of thing within your business, or if you're the type of person who is interested in doing it personally, we basically got funding support available for the prototyping and the development of new products within businesses. So if you've got an idea for an innovative solution, please feel free to get in touch with us so we can talk about what them options are. We've also got funded support for innovations in transport, logistics and mobility. So that's in an area called intelligent mobility. But if you are working in a sector such as transport or logistics, please get in touch as we may have some opportunities for you there to partner with the university with some more innovative solutions. We've also got office space available through our incubation and startup hatchery, and with the office facilities, you get access to all technology facilities that are in the university as well. So that's another great opportunity if you're looking to change or expand on your current office space. And we've also got training opportunities. So we've got skills and knowledge development through continued professional development programs and apprenticeships. So if you are interested in upskilling personally, or a member of your team is looking to upskill, please feel free to get in touch to get an idea about what the university has to offer for you. And then we can also support you with the hiring of student and graduate talent. And then the final point on that, I have touched on that a little bit, but ultimately we are here to help to support large employers as well with innovation support. But that's small, medium or large employers. Your business wants to innovate, try new things, look for innovative solutions to save money or generate new income, and you've got an idea but you need that academic support, please feel free to get in touch. I'm sure we can go through some suitable options for you. Grab the next slide, please, Chris.
That's the last one I've got, Phil.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. So as I said, I mentioned a lot about contacting the Zen folks. So as you can see there, the email address is theemployers@staffs.ac.uk. drop us an email. If any of them things I've mentioned trigger an idea in your mind, whether it be the CPD opportunity to do new training programs, or whether it be to innovate within your business, please feel free to get in touch and we can arrange a bit of a one-to-one to go through the options. Just before we finish, I've had a question in the box, and the question is, so I'm from Greece, could I apply somewhere for a master's degree in cybersecurity?
Yeah, sure. There's two options available. You could apply and come and do your master's degree in cybersecurity here on campus in Staffordshire, or we run it as a distance learning course, so you could take it whilst you're in Greece, do it as part-time distance learning.
Brilliant. The next question, and this is one which I'm going to have to answer, so bear me 1 second, but the question is, how can I access the cybersecurity CPD course? And what we do with that one basically is we identify the eligibility for the business or the person who's applying, and we'll do that through the employers@staffs.ac.uk email address. So that email address is just on the screen now. So if you contact us on there, we can run you through the process. The next question is, have any of you as experts ever been fooled by any kind of cyber attack? And did it give you any insights you didn't previously have? So I'm actually quite looking forward to the response to this one.
Not admitting to anything.
Yeah.
I think everybody at some point has, come very, very close to clicking on something they shouldn't do. We had an email around recently from the University College Union people. So UCU is the union academics can join as teachers basically, and they're asking to confirm which department and what your full name was. I just thought, it's a little bit dodgy. It's been reported as spam email. So, and that came yesterday. I must admit, it had the proper UCU logo on it. At first glance, the email address looked right until I had a proper look, and it was, as Asma said, it was missing the final part of the domain. So it didn't have the UK on the end. So I must admit, I very nearly clicked on it, but then changed my mind at the last minute, and it's been reported as spam. The examples I gave at the start of the presentation, all of those have what come to my personal email addresses. So the one, like for example, from British Gas, that was one that came to me. This came from a residential care home that I have some dealings with, called Maybank over in Cheshire. And they usually email me, and their emails end in this here. And then I got one day, and I don't know why it stood out that this was a different letter in different font. And that was just before I had that about 3 or 4 months ago. These are all taken off my Facebook page, and I get these constantly. And it's just because I'm so used to them now, I just think, yeah, get lost. You're just taking the mickey. And this was one that I got in June from British Gas. The reason I looked at to start off with is British Gas don't supply my gas, and that was the first giveaway. But I think all of us have been caught up at some point or other. And it's just being mindful. I managed to close the presentation down now.
Yeah, I think what you said there, Chris, about everyone probably coming close at some point is definitely right, and hopefully, if ever you do get caught out, you sort of realise at the very last minute when the pages start looking a little bit more fishy, pun intended. So, yeah, I have had a note to say that we haven't got any more questions. So, have you got anything else you'd like to add just before we finish, guys?
If anyone's got any concerns or any worries or wants any further information, please do contact us. I can quite happily get back in touch with you and perhaps set a meeting up or chat with you on my email if you need anything. We're quite happy to give some advice out and for the future. But otherwise, quite often, especially on emails, it'll say urgent, and quite often in bold letters and capital letters to make it sound really, really urgent. Ignore it. Just take your time and think carefully, and don't put yourself in a potential situation where you could cause yourself trouble down the line. I think it is about educating and just taking your time and being slow and thinking carefully about what you're clicking on. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll talk again sometime in the future.